Right, day 27, we're day 2, week 6, focused on executive communication and exceeding expectations. The first day talked about forms of communication, objectives, do's and don't, and feeling uncomfortable or awkward in circumstances. But that being the story in our head isn't necessarily what people are thinking. Today, we are going to get into a topic that is naturally going to happen the more senior you get and the expectations that are placed on you. And within that context, we're going to talk about being authentic, risk-taking, and getting burnt. If you haven't gotten burnt by something you said in your career, perhaps maybe you haven't taken enough of a stand on something, or perhaps you're so good at influencing and getting other people to think that the idea is theirs that you've managed different ways to work around it. But we're going to go a little bit deeper on this topic today and talk about ways to handle it. So part of your communication is content. And as a leader, you will need to make decisions. And decisions, they have consequences. People will react to them. People will praise them. You might feel good about that. Or people will object to them. So how you respond, you're going to want to respond how you want to, not how you feel. So imagine you're in a circumstance where you presented something, you felt it was the right thing, you had it backed in data, and somebody hits you with an objection, and psychologically you just take it as a personal offense, even if they really don't mean that. And you're about to react on how you feel, just like stop. Just stop. If you really can't control yourself, just wait and what I call bench yourself. So imagine you're on a team, baseball, soccer, hockey, whatever, and your behavior is not supportive of the team and the coach tells you to sit on the bench. You need to be your own coach in this circumstance. Put yourself on the bench. That's the only thing that you can manage to do to control yourself. Just walk away, stop, don't say anything, just wait. And when something needs to be said, when you take a step back, you give yourself the opportunity, make sure it's based on the data. Make sure it's not about you and your feelings, but it's what's best for the business and team members. And you can help to make the improvement, but it could be controversial, right? If you're taking the organization in a new direction, you're taking a team in a new direction, doing something different, there could be fallout. You might anticipate these objections a lot, especially in transformative situations, in change management circumstances, in new visions, in new strategy. You could encounter this quite often. So the practice of stopping, realizing maybe you're about to react, taking a step back, and moving forward in control is extremely important. All right, just waiting for the slide to move. All right, here we go. Slides are good. So there's some kind of self-tests that you can do from an authenticity standpoint of understanding if you should say something or not. So ask yourself, if you don't say it, will it eat at you or will you regret not saying anything? Remember, this is not about getting your feelings off your chest. This is not some type of professional psychology session. It's not about that. It is in service to the business and to others. And do not rationalize yourself out of a protection response. So meaning you're not going to say something ultimately just because you're trying to protect yourself. and you don't want to maybe cash in on any political capital, even if it's the right thing for the business and the team, and you've got it backed up in data, and you just rationalize why you shouldn't do it when you knew that you should, and that was the right decision to make. So you need to be very careful not to rationalize yourself into things you know you shouldn't do. Also, another test, ask yourself, are you not saying anything because you are afraid? It's similar to the protection piece. Like if you say something, you're worried about there being consequences. You know, if you say it and you're wrong, are you worried about the fallout? What if the person, even if you don't mean it, takes it as an attack? These are things that you could be saying to yourself that could be prohibiting you from saying something that needs to be said because it helps the business and it helps the team members and it's grounded in data. So each situation is different. You want to weigh the pros and the cons and make an informed decision. So don't react. Hold yourself back. Get the data. Understand, does it benefit the business? Does it benefit the teams? And then understanding reason why you may or may not be saying something. And if, are you doing that? Are you rationalizing it because you're afraid or you want to protect yourself? And that essentially is you're not being authentic to yourself in that circumstance through that protection and that fear. So you want to understand if that is the case, and that helps you to understand if you should be communicating some of these things that might be controversial, that might require your leadership to work through. So if you are in this kind of communication environment where you're constantly having these worries about protection and fearing, you can always do like face-to-face one-on-ones to discuss the situation with people to get some advisement on and to get additional perspective, like get that context. And also if it's someone that maybe you feel might be offended, like get their input, like get their context, like really seek to understand and like be objective. Don't come in there with a formed opinion. Really learn things from that person's point of view to understand the adjustments that you might need to make. And the bottom line is, when you become a transformational leader, you're going to take risks. You're going to be putting yourself in circumstances in which you could get burned. You may feel bad, but it's an opportunity to build your leadership brand. I just mentioned that example of reaching out to somebody that you have a difference of opinion with and getting some feedback, or maybe a mentor or somebody that can advise you and guide you through your thinking. And also, regardless of how you feel, take a moment to calm down and assess, and then take the action. And if you do screw up, if you do get something wrong, immediately take accountability. Don't rationalize it. Don't make excuses for it. Tell the truth. Schedule feedback sessions with people. Get their input on like what happened. It's an opportunity that's similar to defining your targets, except this is specific to you and this specific circumstance. But immediately reach out to people to get the feedback, to understand what kind of adjustments that you can make in the future, and express gratitude for the feedback that people give you, and express the adjustments that you intend to make, just like in the other methods, but this is more focused on a situational thing in a communication. And you want to take an opportunity that you did something wrong, you're owning up to it, you're making the adjustments, you're getting the feedback from others. So you're like twisting this thing that went wrong into an opportunity to demonstrate your leadership. So, are sometimes people irrational? We're people, we are irrational. Like, you don't want to confront people in those circumstances. Again, another opportunity to seek to understand, ask them for their thoughts, what they felt the right approach was. Again, we talked about feeling versus thinking, talked about that earlier on. When you ask people about what they feel, you're looking for the irrational things. Irrational, it doesn't necessarily mean irrational is bad. It's just motivations are sometimes driven by what we feel. And then seeking to understand why they feel that way. What do they feel? Why do they feel that way? And ask them, like you had previously and potentially with other people, why they think someone in your role, or how they think someone in your role should have approached that circumstance differently. So again, giving the opportunity to give feedback about the situation based upon the role, and not directly. Previously, a moment ago, we talked about in a particular communication circumstance, if you want to employ the direct feedback approach, you can do that here because it's highly situational, and also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your leadership by showing accountability and empathy. Or you can also consider, especially in circumstances where you feel it's irrational, that you focus more on the role side. And this can help to bring more reality into the conversation. So action item: reflect on a communication that maybe you've curbed previously and how you might have approached it differently if you understand it, that you're protecting yourself or you're fearing something, you were not being authentic to yourself, maybe you were worried about reacting and you didn't communicate, which could be good, but then you didn't take the moment to think about what's the right way to respond and still do it from a rational standpoint of what's good for the business and for the team. So visualize, look back on a particular event in your career, and then visualize in the future about how you could apply these things that we just discussed in order to change the outcome in a situation, maybe where you felt inauthentic, you were worried about getting burnt, or some kind of action in the communication expressing a point of view that prohibited you from moving forward. All right, this brings us to the end of the day on this topic. I'll see you tomorrow for the next topic.